Textual Builder Supply is pleased to present you with this recording of the technical question that is listed in the title of this video.
This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.
Okay, so you want to discuss overhead stops and holders. What question do you have about that?
I guess when you would recommend them in an application over something else?
Absolutely. So overhead stop or an overhead holder or an overhead friction holder. There are three functions of these items that we classify as overhead stops and holders. There are three functions. You need a means by which to hang the door. You generally need a means by which to close the door and a means by which to latch the door, and you also need a means by which to stop the door, to prevent it from going further than the design calls for. An overhead stop, or an overhead holder, or an overhead friction holder goes above your head at the top of the door frame. They're either concealed, which is very common, or they're surface mounted. And there are light duty versions, medium duty versions, and the most common heavy duty versions. So everybody's familiar with the floor stop. It could be a dome style floor stop. It could be a gooseneck style stop. You've got wall stops, and you've got light duty and heavy duty and hinge pin stops, and all kinds of means by which to limit the door from going past where it should. In applications where there's high volume or the potential for vandalism, you want a robust means by which to stop the door. And that's where overhead stops come in. Because of their slide track principle, they're going to be considered extremely heavy duty. Whereas other means of stopping the door will not necessarily do the job as well as an overhead stop. An example of that would be a crash chain that's held on with 4 number 8 sheet metal screws into the door and into the header, and none of that's typically reinforced. And the first time that the door is opened and a gust of wind catches it, you can guarantee that those screws are going to get ripped out of the door. That is not a dependable and safe way to stop the door. That's an application for an overhead stop. There is also an application, envision a bathroom, a powder room, where you would walk into and the door would only open about 70 degrees before it would literally hit the commode. And you have a particular type of hinge, like a sauce or a Tectus, that you can't use a hinge pin door stop. You can't use a floor stop because where are you going to put the floor stop? In the middle of the floor? Under the commode where your feet are going to hit it? You can't use a wall stop because you can't get past 70 degrees. That's a residential application, and if you think hard enough, you might recall an application like that in your life, where you have to go in 70 degrees, close the door behind you, then you have access to the commode and to the sink. That's a perfect example of when, while it's not heavy duty and commercial, when you would absolutely use an overhead stop. Generally, concealed is what you want. You always want concealed hardware because it looks nicer. The problem with concealed hardware is a lot of the door people in the world, they'll say, I can't do that. I don't know how to prep for that. I didn't price that. No. And the door may not be tolerant of you doing that. But it's always a case where it's really the best type of hardware in many instances. So what I'd like for you to do is in the website, just type in the search term ABH overhead.
All right, I'm looking at it.
And click on the very first item that comes up.
Okay.
That's a slimline. I think it's what they call a slimline. Overhead concealed stop. That means that part of it's mortised into the top of the door and the other part's mortised up into the header. When the door is closed, you really don't see the hardware. However, and this will serve as an example for the surface mount as well. Click on that item and scroll down, and on the right-hand side, click Cut Sheet. Let's look at that really quickly.
I'm looking at it.
Now, what's really important about this is when you scroll down to the bottom of that first page, there are different models. There's the 11, the 12, the 13, the 14, the 15, when it's a hold open style. The 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, that's the stop style. What that has, it's the same series of unit, except that depending on how you've hung the door, you have to order a different part number because the width of the door and the means by which you hang the door, where the vertical axis of pivoting is, dictate the model you have to order. Basically, a wider door requires a longer mechanism, is really at the end, at the bottom line. So you have to be really careful to order it using the right part number based on the means of hanging the door, hinges or offset pivots, or center hung, and you'll see how the part number changes depending on how you have hung the door. Really important. And what's really great about these concealed models is you can use them on double acting doors as well. So it doesn't matter if it's single or double. So it's very important to point that out. Go back to the profile of the item and then click on template. Now, yeah, so this shows you how to mortise the door and frame. What you'll do is scroll down to the middle of the first page and look at the right side where it will, the figure, the drawing, which they don't have titled here, but it's single acting door. On the right side, it'll say arm cut out one side. So doing this type of prep requires a mortise in the top of the door, but it also requires cutting the face of the door back so that when the door is opened, the arm can slide out from the door. You don't see it when it's closed because the face of the stop conceals it. And if you look down, if you scroll down a little bit, look at double acting door, you'll see that the arm is cut out. The arm cutout has been done on the door on both sides of the door. So it's not a hard prep to do, but a lot of people don't want to learn how to do it, is the bottom line. It's actually an easy prep, and I can demonstrate in the CAD/CAM software how to actually prep it really easy, and actually I will draw it. Go down to page 2, and what you're going to see here is the top half is doors that are hung on butts or pivots, meaning butts and swing clear butts and offset pivots. The second half is center hung. Center hung is going to be where that vertical axis of pivoting is down in the center of the thickness of the door. Let's just assume that you're using butts, regular 4.5, 4.5, BB 1279s, whatever you like. Now, what you're going to notice is the degree of opening on these is you've got 85 degree hold open, 90 degree hold open, 95 degree hold open. You see that at the top of page 2, basically?
Yep.
Okay. Below that, you've got 100 degree hold open, 105 hold open, and 110 hold open. Imagine if you took all 6 of those columns and just put them on one line. What they're saying is you can install these if your point of hold open or stop or whatever, hold open or stop, is from 85 degree to 110 degree. You cannot use an overhead stop for any door that swings greater than 110 degree. Meaning, you can install it on a door that can go more than 110 degree, which is probably why you're installing it. But with that hardware installed, depending on where you template it, you can never achieve a door swing greater than 110. Never. That's important to understand. Overhead stops, they limit you to 110 degree. Meaning if you had to go to 115 degree, you cannot do it. So now, if you look at the A dimension, on the 85, the 90, the 95, the 100, 105, 110, you'll see how the A dimension continues to get smaller as you go across. That means you put it closer to the pivot point. And the A, the B, the C, the E dimension, if you scroll up to the top of page 1, look at the A dimension drawn on the top of page 1. That's the prep, the channel in the door to that vertical axis of pivoting for that butt. So the question that people have is, well, where do I place that cutout? Well, it's on the template. And what you do is you refer to the A, the B, the C, the E dimension. And then you know where to prep all of that. So the important part is it's got the top of page 2 has 5 rows. It's the same stuff, except that your model changes when your door gets wider. So this looks like a whole mess of stuff, but what we would do in the old days is I would have my yellow marker and I would just highlight what was important. So if I was doing a 95 degree hold open for a 1013 SL, I would only highlight 10 and 5/8, 7 and 9/16, 6 and 3/4, 22 and 7/8 and 20, I would just highlight that. And that's all I'm looking at on that job. So you then take those data points for your dimension, your locations, and then you mortise the door. Mortising the door is a different conversation. But the moral of the story is you can do surface mount. You have the same 110 degree limitation. You still have the A, B, C, D, E dimensions. You just have to follow it and plug it in. And the answer to the original question is you almost always need a means to stop a door. Now, if you have a linen closet in a house where you keep your towels and whatnot, you probably don't need a doorstop on that. But in many, many instances, having a doorstop is extremely helpful. Give me an example of a door that you use every single day. Give me that example.
Front door to my condo.
Front door to your condo. I happen to know that door. That door is a right hand, which means it swings in, and that door can go to about 95 degree before the Sargent mortise lock trim is going to hit the drywall. That is a perfect example of where you need a means to stop the door. In that instance, a wall stop would probably be okay because it's residential. No one's going to slam it. A floor stop would be okay, but you don't want to put things on the floor because it makes it harder to mop and sweep and Roomba, blah, blah, blah. But that's a perfect example of where you need an overhead stop. Now take that same scenario and put it on Starbucks. Well, Starbucks doors swing out. Starbucks doors can get caught by the wind. Starbucks doors have door closers, but the key is this. Door closers are not a means of stopping the door. Door closers can come with arms that are intended to stop the door, but the proper hardware to stop a door is not the door closer or any arm that you put on it. And it's very common that you will install a door closer with whatever arm you want and the overhead stop, because it's the doors of the United Center. Blackhawks just lost in the 7th game, and people are piling out and slamming those doors as you exit. You're going to need the right type of hardware for that. But any door that you think of needs a stop. There are just instances when you need a overhead stop because it is the piece of hardware that is absolutely most robust in the world for doing the job and can be depended on doing the job. And it's the way that they're installed, where it's through-bolted with very large bolts through the door. It's mortised and welded and reinforced in the header, etc. So further reading on this topic would absolutely be, I pulled up an ABH example because everybody knows Glenn Johnson. I do recommend Glenn Johnson. They've got a really great consolidated catalog. When you learn the world of overhead stops, you're always going to have light, medium, heavy duty, overhead and concealed, and then you'll have little tips and tricks and sneaks and brackets and other ways to tweak it. But if you look at one catalog, you're almost looking at every manufacturer's catalog of overhead stops. Rockwood makes some. I think Sargent used to make some. Rockwood must make some because they would be the trim and auxiliary provider for ASA. Glenn Johnson is the name that everybody knows of first, but ABH is a great example. Do you have any questions on that?
Currently, no.
Okay, so that's everything that we can talk about on overhead stops, and if there are any questions, let me know.
Will do. Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Architectural Builders Supply hopes you have enjoyed this program. Please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.